I am still in $4 million worth of debt with my husband. I don't want to live like that. Who am I? For so many years, I just checked the box. This is what a good wife does. This is what a mother is supposed to do. For a long time, I carried a lot of guilt. I'm never doing enough. I can't be enough for Matt. Why are you choosing me? There was a point where he had gone too far with. I remember just crying, and I read this letter. After it, my mom said, I wanted, deeply desire that, and I didn't. I don't think I felt that in my family.
Lexi, so glad to have you here at the Unshakable Wealth podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing today and what are you most proud of? And it doesn't have to be achievements or accomplishment, but just in general.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. The greatest thing I'm proud of is my family, of course. They've made me who I am today. My husband and I met when we were 18, and Matthew and I have sort of had to watch each other grow up and learn how to be our biggest cheerleaders to each other. And what I'm most proud of is that the way that God changes us is never what we expect. I wouldn't have ever expected to be leaning back into this community that I ran from about 5 years ago. In the midst of all of our challenges, we sold our company and moved to the coast. I had this feeling deep in me that I needed to run away. And now looking back, I was just really burnt out and scared, and I didn't know how to face the life in front of me. It felt like it was shattering. Everything was coming undone. And now looking back through that, not that we are completely on the other side and in the comfort zone by any means, but just the peace that God can give us through all that we've been through. I'm just really proud of the mom that I am, even in the midst of the challenges. I see my boys now, 5 and 7, and they're just so full of love and wisdom. My oldest son is wise beyond his years, and he has just soaked up every Bible story and just hides it in his little heart. And I'm just really proud of that. For a long time, I carried a lot of guilt, and I can feel sad knowing that I had to feel all of that. And now God's just taken all that off my heart and given me so much grace and love for myself that I never had before. Like all of us women, we're hard on ourselves. But now we're building our 4th property management company, and I'm just doing it different this time. I want to, of course, take care of our assets that we've worked so hard to buy, but also take care of our clients and our tenants. And I want to know our properties and I want to know the people. That's what I always enjoy doing the most, is helping people. I'm a people person, and the mundane of rent collection and sorting through the maintenance requests and the accounting. I really resonated with your part of the book about hating the accounting and being like, I don't like math. I don't like the numbers. And your book was really convicting to me in those. But it's all part of it. And I feel like I'm just blown away right now with how we can do the work and not have to feel so heavy about it. And if you just lean in and do it, you actually can get it done in a quick amount of time. I'm doing my emails in about 30 minutes a day now, and I've just learned how to be really efficient and value what I'm good at and not try to be all of the things, valuing other people in my life, and that it really does take a community. And I'm really proud too, because while I think when I started my motherhood journey, I had so much fear of how different community members might affect me or my children. I was really big into boundaries. And now I feel like we call it the Ohio mindset. My husband's from Ohio. And the greatest thing is that when you go stay at grandma's house, everybody just comes in and out the side door. And you don't have to call or text, right? Grandma's always home and will offer you a cup of coffee. And I always loved that, but I always was like, well, that's just not me. That's not the house I was raised in. And now our house is that. And I'm just so happy with that. I'm proud that I don't have to stress about the mess. Our life doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to have these staunch boundaries that keep people out. And I just feel full of love. And I'm just so happy to be here. While I didn't want anything to do with business, I thought I just wanted chickens and a garden and be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool my kids. I had to soften to what God wanted for me. Sometimes it looks different. Matt always says that I was too set in dreaming about Eden. I was stuck in the Eden mindset of wanting to be back in the garden. I had to come to realization true surrender looks like accepting that we were ordained for this world, right here in this place, and this community. I ran from Round Rock. I was like, this community is too much for me. They love so hard. There's too many people that know each other. And now I'm overwhelmed by the love in it. I'm happy to step back into my old life that I left 5 years ago and find that I'm a different person and that the community's still the same. And I just feel like that's such a testimony to God's grace for us.
There's so much that I want to unpack on what you just said. So, in the very beginning, you said that this journey, and it's the fifth management company, and Matthew meeting very early, it made you who you are today. What is that? What is Lexi today versus Lexi at 18?
When I met Matt at 18, I was so amazed at his no fear attitude. And that's actually one of his core values of his company. And he even told me, I want to be president one day. I was like, how can you even have that big of a goal? But then letting his love for the world and his no fear just really transformed my heart. He really helped with my transformation journey big time. I still have to ward off those negative thoughts that creep in that our old self wants to kind of come back to us. But
what are those?
I'm never doing enough, not ever on top of it. I can't be enough for Matt. He needs someone much braver. I never felt like, I always had this weird feeling like, why are you choosing me? I've always told him this too. I am an education background and I taught second grade. I've taught fourth grade. I love children. And I told him that if it was just me, I'd be comfortable teaching and having a little cottage on the coast and that I would rollerblade to work and that would be enough for me. Maybe would have some chickens and a garden, and Matt just dreams so big. And so he's taught me the power of maybe life has more for us. And maybe we don't have to be scared of letting our light shine and letting people see it. I convinced Matt even 5 years ago when we sold our company that it was too much, that our life was too busy and that it wasn't good for any of us. And I think I just held on to a lot of guilt that I'm learning to let go of. I feel like everything in your book that you talk about, I have gone through or am currently going through. And you talk a lot about letting other people's life be theirs and their past. I feel really weirdly connected to you, and I feel like I'm on this path, and I do not feel like it's a coincidence that Matthew met you. I'm really excited to learn from you, and I feel like I'm finally on the path that God's been calling me for a long time. The little whispers that he yells out or feels like a yell sometimes. Going back to your question, who am I today? In a lot of ways, I'm still the same fifth grader, that girl that I was then, just allowing my true light to finally shine through, that I don't feel like I've let people in on. I'm just taking off the mask. I feel like our world has this, we put on this face, we have it all together. And I felt like if I can't have it all together, then I just don't want to face anybody. But that's the whole point. When we don't have it together, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and lean into our community is where I have found a lot of healing. Being okay with letting people see the hard side of life and that it's not always pretty. That's where the connections are made. And I'm having a lot of fun connecting with people through the hard story right now.
Do you still feel at times that you're not enough?
Yes.
Where do you think that comes from? How did Lexi grow up? Can you tell a little bit about your childhood?
I'm the middle of 3 girls, and I had what I would consider a normal, happy childhood. I feel like I was happy, but then I think it was pretty recent that I was like, was I happy? Did I feel like I was really seen? I've done a lot of work on trying to not blame our parents. And I've heard your story, and I've done a lot of comparing. The way I started this story is very normal, good childhood. But I don't think I was ever able to really be myself. My parents wanted to maintain this normal, we've got it all together, 2 hardworking parents that provided a lot for my sisters and I. But I had a little sister who was 7 years younger than me, and my mom told everybody she was a mistake. And my mom meant it in a funny way, but she would always say, oh, I didn't want any more children, so Lexi had to be the mom. And it was just about a year ago, my little sister said, you've got to stop mothering me. I'm an adult now. I'm good. And I was like, you're right. I have been mothering you your whole life. I feel like I had to grow up pretty quick when I was 7 because my mom was done having kids. My mom felt like giving us what we needed, providing for us, was her being a mom. And I love my mom, and I'm grateful for her, and I'm grateful that she provided food and shelter. But I still remember I was a junior in high school, and I had this really bad habit of picking my skin. And I can still fall into this habit. I have to be really careful. And I would just get anxious and feel like I couldn't tell anybody that I was anxious. I needed to maintain, I got it all together. I'm making good grades. I'm athletic. I would feel like I need to keep this act up. And I would get so anxious and I would pick at my skin. I even started picking in my armpit. It was really a gross habit. And I remember when I was a junior in high school, I heard something about confessing and talking to people. You say this in your book too about how just admitting something is the first step. And like they talk about that in AA. If there's a problem, even admitting it to our stubborn hearts. So I felt, okay, I need to write my family a letter. I felt very sure of this. I'm going to write them a letter, and I'm going to just pour all of my emotions out and tell them that I have a problem with picking my skin. And I'm going to tell them I need help. So I remember just crying, and it was such a good practice for me to write it all down. And then that night at dinner, I read it. I said, I need to read you guys a letter that's really, really hard for me to read. And I read this letter, and after it, my mom said, thank you for telling us. And she gave me a hug, and then she never said anything about it again.
How did
And I was
that
like,
feel?
just like I couldn't be myself. Like I think we deeply desire that we are loved and known fully. And that's one of my favorite songs. You are fully known and fully loved. Like to be both of those things. And I don't think I felt that in my family. I can't tell you guys what I'm really going through, because we don't talk about hard things in this family. And that was hard for me to realize. And I think I knew that already. I think I knew that from a little girl. I hid things in my whole life and just felt like I had to put a good face on. My mom is beautiful and always shows up with a smile and always has her stuff together. I don't think I truly know my mom. Even as an adult now, I have to fight that in order to have a relationship with my parents now. I have to say, if something is important to me, even if you don't know how to talk about this, I have to tell you that I didn't like this, or that there was a instance with my dad recently with my son, and it bothered me for 2 weeks. I didn't talk to him. And finally, I called him and I said, Dad, you mean too much to me to ignore this. I value our relationship. I don't expect you to say anything or even say sorry, but I need to say this bothered me. I don't talk to my children this way. I need you to respect how you're talking to my children when you're around them. I have worked on this enough to where I'm going through this healing, and I'm kind of on the other side of it. For so long, I couldn't even stand to be around my parents because I would go back to who I used to be. And now I'm finding so much healing and just trying to, and I have to pray about this all the time. God, just please let me be myself and not put on this act when I'm around my parents. And I feel like how we're around our family, it just goes into every other part of our life. And just not feeling good enough for Matt and still fighting those feelings. And I wish there was a quick, easy heal me button. God, we want to be healed. Just heal us. But I think some of these, it takes some leaning into why we're a certain way and being able to say, okay, little Lexi, you don't have to hide anymore. You can be yourself. And if people don't like it, then that's okay. I was raised as a people pleaser. Get good grades and be nice and just do what you're supposed to do. And don't even ask too many questions. My mom gets really uncomfortable when I ask hard questions. And I don't want to just have a surface life where we just talk about the easy things. I want to go deeper. And that's taken me a long time to unpack.
My mind immediately goes to something my daughter did. We were in a car and she was asking about certain things my mom and I went through. She asked this question and it just woken up my brain to it. She goes, Mommy, what kind of life did my grandma had for her to behave the way she behaved with you in that instance? So my mind goes in what you were saying about your mom. I'm kind of curious now, what was her life in childhood that made her to be the person she was and is, and what is she trying to, back to Matthew, what kind of skeletons that she hasn't overcome that spilled over into your life. There's Secrets of Millionaire by T. Harv Eker, and he gives an example of the daughter cooking a ham, and she was cutting the edges of the ham. And her husband asked, why do you cut the edges of the ham? And she's like, I don't know, my mom did it. So then they went to the mom. Mom, why do you cut the edges of the ham? I don't know, my mom did it. So they went to the grandma. Grandma, why do you cut the edges of the ham? Well, my pan was too small, so I would cut the edges to fit the ham into the pan.
Yep. We're just creatures of our habit, what we grew up in. Yep.
But it's so interesting that it passes on to us subconsciously. We sometimes just don't, and all of us do that. All of us. It's certain things we just pick up, but never wake up to, well, why was that person doing that? Just like my daughter, Mommy, how did she grow up for her to react the way she reacted? She mentions things that I'm just so curious about, like going back to who I was when I was around them. Now that you've worked hard, how are you behaving? And the reason why I'm asking is because so many people out there that are listening and watching and seeing this that are struggling with the same thing. they have to code switch or person switch, either with their parents, siblings, or friends. You also mentioned that the Ron Draw community of too much love was too much for me. So what is the person that you were going back to, and why was even that too much love kind of scaring you?
I think that I've learned how to open up my heart and be myself with my community. It's making me stronger and more able to go to my old community and show them with grace just who I am instead of forcing them to be a certain way. For a long time, I felt like, man, I'm growing and I really need y'all to do that too in order for me to be around you. And long story about my older sister. I'll give you the quick version of it. She's 18 months older than me. And I was a very emotionally unstable teenager. I was really blessed to find God at a young age in middle school. And she would make all these choices. And I just remember praying for her, and several times can remember just the Holy Spirit totally taking me over, and me. I have now come to know that I have the spiritual gift of knowledge, which I used to think that's for smart people, but it really is just knowing something that you really don't know, but you have this feeling of knowing. I was always there for her when she needed someone. And I also have the gift of empathy. So I feel like I really can feel people. And that's made it really difficult to be around my family now, because I can feel when they're uncomfortable. I can feel when they're not happy. And I, as the middle child, always wanted to fix that. I always wanted to take everybody's hurt away. And if I can be someone that can just be strong enough to handle it, then that's fine. I'll sacrifice myself to make you feel okay. And now looking back on that, if I could have just been a little more of a kid and focused on myself and not so much of my older sister and trying to help her, and she was hanging out with guys that were abusing her, and I was right there with her, knew everything. And she would say, well, don't tell mom and dad. I don't even know how I would tell mom and dad. I felt like I held a lot of secrets for her. So my sister, about 8 years ago, she cut my whole family out for a period of 5 years. She had children that we didn't know about. And I just always had this desire to, like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm just going to leave you a voicemail every now and then. I wrote her a couple letters. I kept her up to date with my life. Fast forward, she, around my parents, is so graceful and just this quiet humility to her of not wanting my parents to be a certain way. And I remember about a year ago, we were on a walk and I said, it's easier for you because you had this 5-year break from mom and dad. And now you can come back in this new beautiful self, and you just have this grace for mom and dad that you're not worried about them being a certain way. And I feel like I really struggle with that. Maybe I'm closer to mom and dad and I have to deal with them more than you do. But how do I let it not bother me? And how do I let my true light shine in the midst of their judgment? And I really think that that just comes from your faith and letting your true self be there. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but also Mel Robbins' Let Them book has really helped me too. I love her so much. I think that she has so much to unlock in us when we compartmentalize our life and we're like, I'm one way to my kids and I'm another to my friends socially, and then I'm a different person at work, and then I'm much different with my family that I grew up with. And I think that causes so much anxiety for us when we can't just be ourselves. It just comes from letting people judge you, letting them feel the way they want to, and letting them be in charge of their own emotions, knowing that if Lexi is just in charge of herself, then I can make much more of a difference in this world than by trying to change everyone around me.
It's so interesting you mentioned about people pleasing and wanting to sacrifice yourself for others. It made me think of plug with several ports in it, an extension where we are this extension and we just plug everyone in, but we have no source to charge ourselves. So then there's a lot of drainage and we can't give the best of what God has created us to be because it's empty. And it's such a hard thing. It's really hard to do because, especially because I grew up and please everyone above everything. And it's hard to struggle with that because you're like, but I am a good person. I want to help and I should help because that's what good people do. So then it ends up where you just grow more weak, more resentful, and not really helping with the best you can help. So I'm so thankful for you bringing this up and being vulnerable and sharing that because we don't realize that we create less of a giving by thinking we're giving more.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like I didn't know that I was struggling with that until you really experience burnout when you're running a business and you have babies. Before children, you have so much time on your hands that you can keep filling everybody up and you don't realize a lot of your anxiety and all of my resources I feel like were drained after children came along. And all of a sudden I became very angry. And it was coming as anger to the people that we love the most and reacting just not who I felt like I was to my children and to Matthew and just the person I was showing up as. I was just like, who am I? Where is this coming from? And realizing that I don't want to live like that. And how do I release this anger? I learned so much about how anger really is just this deep sadness in us that we've never expressed. And I think all of those years of taking care of my little sister and trying to please her and trying to please my older sister to where, and I think it was a little bit of keeping also my parents happy. Like, okay, everybody just calm down and hold it all in. My dad has a lot of anger issues that I've always tried to keep him cool. I didn't expect it to come out in anger after having children, but so grateful for that too, because our emotions can teach us so much.
Mm-hmm.
And all of who we are is really hidden in them. Anxiety too can teach us so much. I'm not super about all of America getting on all of these anti-anxiety and anti-depression medicine because that's like our radio dial to God telling us something. Typically, I find anxiety is when your priorities are shifted. Are you putting God and then yourself a little bit over marriage? Because if you're not your best self, marriage is just really challenging. And when you're pouring from an empty cup, your husband can feel that. And they don't deserve that. And then they can't operate at their best selves if their partner is not. I did that for so many years. I just checked the box. This is what a good wife does. This is what a mother is supposed to do. And then I one day was like, I am my mom for just giving my children what they need. And I am my dad because I'm always angry and I'm always irritable. I wish they would just stop and ask themselves why and dive in a little deeper. I went on this journey to figure it out and we left our community. We're living on the coast. I just asked God to use that time away to really heal me. And I knew it wasn't forever that we were going to be gone. And I am by no means completely healed, but yet God has called us back home. I think sometimes we want our conditions to be perfect so that we can do the God ordained work. That's never going to happen, right? We've got to just jump in and let Him do the work on us while we're in the midst of growing. And what I'm finding is when I show up with all the imperfections, people need it. They have the invitation to open up. About 6 months ago, Matt and I were living at an RV park. It was our invitation to leave Corpus, which we had been praying and looking for. And so Matthew found this project. And we were in the middle of it. I was homeschooling the boys, also trying to run this RV park, and just feeling really confused. Like, God, is this really where you want us right now? And it just was placed on my heart to find other women who also needed a channel. And so it was on my heart for like 3 weeks, a pretty adamant message from God, like, you need to find a group to open up to. And I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And I was talking to Matt about it. And he said, why don't you pitch something on my Thursday class? There's hundreds of people. So I got on there and I said, I am really feeling led to start a book club and an accountability group all in one, where women can jump on once a week and just share what they're going through. And I said, I feel like I'm in a transitional period right now. And I think confession is something we don't put enough value on as Christian women. We really need to lean in to confessing what we're struggling with. And so now, 6 months later, we're still doing the group, and it has changed me. Just being accountable, number one, like telling people out loud, this is what I'm working on right now. This is what I'm struggling with. And giving them a stage of other women that, like, you can be vulnerable and there's no judgment. We're going to keep this between us. It's been amazing. We're not all Christians in the room, which is really cool too, because the power of confession doesn't mean you have to be saved first. And non-Christians know a sin is the same. And you don't have to be a Christian to know that you're living in sin and that you're not who God made you to be. And I just feel like God, that was like just this small little stage where God said, I want you to step out and be who you are, even when it's hard. One of my favorite verses right now is work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Do it with your fears. Step into it, and then God shows up. We don't have to feel like showing up, but if we do, then our hearts are changed through it. I've just been really comforted. We've all been through the same thing. We all have childhood traumas that made a different imprint on our life today, but we all have them. And I love that God put us in this generation where there's change happening, where people are looking at, what did my parents do that I can do different? And how can we still give them grace and love them as our parents? It's easier to cut them out. I get that. Matt's brother is doing that to his mom right now. And I struggle with Matt's mom too. She's a very beautiful person, but we all have families that are hard. And so I think just the more that we can talk about it, and you putting on this podcast and being willing to go deep and dark sometimes, is where the light can shine. And I'm just really grateful for that.
Thank you. I'm very appreciative of you when everyone that comes and opens up, because I know it's not easy. I have a different side question, because everything, and you mentioned family traumas, everything has two sides. One is the things that we carry that are obstacles or things that are hindering us in life. But then there's the side that the same exact things that are hindering have developed in us things that have propelled us and made us have the good qualities. So out of the things that we talked about from your childhood, the need to get over the not enough, or too much love or trying to be perfect at all times. What are the things that created in you, built the character in you that have served you very well and that you're thankful for?
That's a great question. And I love how you talked about that in your book too, how it was a choice. I love that you framed it as a choice that we make, whether to frame it where it's hurting us and holding us back or pushing us to who we are. And you're right. I think that's a daily choice. I can look at what I went through as basically a young mom, but you did that too, right? I think having a deeply motherly instinct in us has served probably both of us our whole life. Even before I was a mom, there's been so many children that I feel I could just lean into and love, and I'm still very motherly. I feel like it's such a beautiful gift when you lean into it. We have a friend funeral next weekend, and I was chosen as the one to stay home with all the babies and babysit. And I'm so happy. That motherly instinct has also really propelled me in property management. I'm really good at being empathetic and hearing what people are going through, but also having to turn to, okay, we can feel things and be there for people, but we all have consequences and have to do what we're supposed to do. I still have to pay my mortgage, and I need you to pay your rent so I can pay my mortgage. I feel like those traits of empathy and motherly qualities were built at a really young age that I'm now using for my property management business. Learning how to deal with people that are passive aggressive at a young age, learning how to deal with someone who does struggle with anger, or we can look at the people pleasing as like, okay, I'm trying to make you happy and keep it all together. But now that I'm in property management and I deal with so many different types of people, when you're dealing with tenants, you're not just dealing with big investors. Those are great and fun to talk to, but I'm really good at it because I can deal with all types of people. And I've heard this so many times that property management is kind of like being a therapist, because people want to just call you and yell at you, and you're an easy person to be mad at. Having to deal with these kind of emotions as I was growing up have now helped me deal with them better. And I don't take them personal. I know this person's just going through a lot. They probably don't have anyone else to talk to. I am approachable and try to be easy to talk to in hard situations. And so I've gotten good at letting people open up. You have to have good communication skills as a property manager. And I definitely think my childhood set me up for that.
I can relate to you so much in what you just said, because it truly is a blessing to be able to talk to anyone. Investors, high net worth, middle net worth, no net worth.
Yes.
Understand the feelings that you said, knowing, but also understand it. And learning, allowing them to teach us how to push back and set boundaries when there need to. Because for the longest time, I didn't know how to put boundaries on it. I would let people do the same thing. Once I heard this, and it was such a relief to me. People walk around with garbage on their back. And I don't mean this in a bad way. Everyone does, whatever. It might be a bad day, it might be a bad childhood. It's just a matter of who is in front of them that day or that moment that they're going to unload that garbage. It has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
It has to do with just unloading day. And it happened that you were in front of them. And I like the way you said, training not to take it personally, training our mind has nothing to do with me. It's just, it is what it is. Hopefully they have a better day, but also like separation and boundaries. And it's a very hard journey to be able to do that. And I can hear it in you, and I can certainly see it in my life. That pool of pleasing and being nice to, no, that's too far. It's the limit for you.
Yes. I always try to know tenants' kids' names and their dogs' names. I want them to know that I care. But yes, people will take as much as you're willing to give them. there's a lot of people we come into contact with that I've heard it said are not doing the work. And you can kind of look down on them, not even give them the time of day. But when you're in a profession where it's part of your job, you have to listen to them and you have to also set boundaries. It definitely is a daily practice and you get better at the boundary setting as you do it. I think it's just that the world that we live in, you could think that this is like the worst of times or the best of times. And it's really neither. Every time period has its complexities in what we're dealing with. But the message of self-help and growth and boundary setting can all be really good. But I went a little too far with it, as I shared before. And that can make you have all these walls put up. We can think we're better without realizing it. We can create our own little world where we're not going into the outside and making any difference at all. I think that's a wasted life. So I never want to go that far, but it is a challenge. It's hard to have boundaries and love people. I think it's just something that you got to let God fill in you and show you how it works, because it's a daily struggle for me.
So great that you're mentioning this, because it is true. You can build the walls, which is a prison. It's another form of prison for yourself. So it's just hard to have an impact when you've built the walls. The hardest thing in life is having the balance. It's easy to go from one extreme to another, but having the balance is, it's always what we're trying to work towards, to be in connection with God, in tune with God, serve, but not overly burn, give to the thirsty, but not completely dry ourselves up. That's the tightrope that we're walking on. But you've done a really good job with it. And I know that not everyone's going to be perfect and have it all together, but you have done really good. And what I'm most fascinated about is that you have built the management companies, which we're going to get into in a minute because I want to hear about that journey. And y'all have built a network together. My husband always likes to quote the Rocky movie, I have gaps, you have gaps. We fill each other's gaps.
Yes.
But you have stayed so warm and so down to earth and so pleasant to talk to be around. And I'm not saying that you might not have anger in certain moments, because I do. I can be a nice cat and I can scratch you pretty bad if you're trying to poke me in a different way, because we all have two sides. There's always two sides to us, but we try to work through the things and become the best version of ourselves. But seeing you become even more of who you were intended to be through all of that stuff, it's truly seeing the light in you, the light that God wanted you to shine, that He intended for you to shine. Because people can go through these journeys and they can turn even more angry, more resentful, more bitter, more pushing God away and saying, I've done X, Y, Z, more of a victim. But you have turned to be more warm, more open, more loving, and still go through that journey. And I'm very thankful that you're here and sharing this and being you. So with that, let's go into the management. So you guys are on, you said fifth, and it was a lot of houses. So what was the number of houses that you guys have gotten, each one of them, or the biggest one, whichever you choose, whichever gave you the most headaches? And how was that journey?
It's definitely been a journey, and every phase that our different partnerships went through taught me something that I took with me to the next one. When Matthew and I first started our company, it was here in Round Rock. We lived in the same neighborhood just down the street. And our first house where we were married, Matthew and I were supposed to do it together. But then he got a job with a good commercial brokerage downtown Austin. We decided as a team, okay, you go do that and I'm going to stay home and work on this management company. Matt's mom did a great job at setting up a portfolio for me to take on. She had 14 homes when I started, and that was my first portfolio. And I remember feeling, again, that feeling of not good enough crept up in me. And I was just overwhelmed. This has been a pattern where I've like, okay, this is going to be fun and exciting and let's do it. Then I start doing it and I get really scared and I'm like, okay, never mind. Like, I don't want to do this. And so Matthew and I ended up calling the company that he worked with in College Station while he was getting his master's degree. He worked for this huge leasing company. They managed thousands of doors. And he called them and said, hey, what if you guys have a branch down here in Austin? Let's get together. And Matt's so good at connecting people. And so he's always been my biggest cheerleader. What's your problem? I can find someone who can help you. And now I know that about him and I use it sparingly because he'll throw a lot of things at me and it can overwhelm me. So I have to be choosy. We ended up partnering with this company and I just remember thinking, this is the answer. They've gone ahead of me. They've done this. We're going to do the same thing in Austin. I learned that you can't just expect somebody to do the work for you. After a year of partnering with them, all of the success we had was because of me. They didn't do anything to help me to get those doors. They provided the back end platform. They gave me advice when I really needed it, but they were hard to get a hold of. So usually I would go find it from someone else. And so after a year of partnering with them and just realizing if it's already been a year of this, we don't want to keep building something that is going to be half yours.
Did you add more houses?
Yes, our portfolio was right at 100 after the first year.
Okay.
I built that organically. Matthew helped me a lot with networking and with getting people, but I joined B&I groups. I joined ABOR and got really involved with ABOR. I joined groups that I was curious about too. Like I always was curious about being a woman involved in politics and I wanted to learn more about that. So I got involved with the local chamber and the Williamson County women's political campaigns. And so I'd go out to voting days and that was really fun. I feel like I learned a lot in that first year. I really put myself out there in a way I hadn't before, realizing I don't need somebody just standing next to me to feel okay to do this. I can do this on my own. And so we ended up buying our partners out, doing it on our own. I think of that as the second management company. I had to rebuild all of our systems and move it to a different portfolio. Our small 100 doors wasn't big enough to use their same software now that we were on our own. I had to rebuild it and learn new software. And that was a setback, but it also started a little bit of my fear of accounting and numbers because now I was having to do it on my own. And the partners were handling that part of it. And now I'm like, oh no, this is something I didn't really think about. I was scared of it, but I would do it, but I wasn't owning it. And so it was really messy. I got myself into some late nights of having to unscramble accounting and learning some hard number lessons. I let my mother-in-law's portfolio get in about $20,000 worth of debt that she owed my company because I thought I was helping her. I was like, oh, well, this house doesn't have the money right now, so I'm just going to borrow it from this one. And I created a big mess and it got out of hand and I shouldn't have let it get that far. So I feel like I started just owning all the pieces of it, learning them, like learning how to do really good leasing and how to market and how to handle maintenance guys without them taking advantage of me, and started to own all the pieces. Then we had George, and he was 8 weeks old. And I remember calling my friend, Gwen. I love her so much. She owns a great company called Anna Quinn. They do virtual assistants for property management companies. So it was about 150 doors when George was 8 weeks old. No, I'm sorry, we were at 250. And I called Gwen and I was like, I really need help. I don't know if I need another assistant, but I'm struggling with overseeing my company. And I just feel this pressure every night, all these things running through my head of what I need to do. I never can calm down. I'm not being present with my son. I feel like I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do. And she said, pack your bag. I need you to come to Omaha, Nebraska right now. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So I made Matt come with me. I left my 8-week-old baby with his mom. And we brought one of our good friends who was helping me with leasing at the time, Andrew. We got to her office and she handed me a book called Traction. Have you read Traction?
No.
A lot of your book mirrors it. Like when you were talking about setting SMART goals,
Mm-hmm.
that's so Traction. Traction helps you compartmentalize your business into 6 different components. And every business has all 6 of these components, but it helps you get healthy in all 6 of them. It teaches you how to get healthy, how to run effective meetings, how to structure your business into a structure that works for you, putting the right people in the right seats. And how do you even know if they're the right people? You've got to come up with your core values and you have to have goals. It just spelled everything out. And then I got to see her. Gwen had a property management business at the time. And I got to see it in real life. I got to watch her run a meeting. She spends the summers on Lake Michigan with her daughters and they ride horses. I was like, how do you have this beautiful life? And she took me under her wing and I got to see the power of having a mentor. And I actually just talked to her last week and her and I are still connected and she's still giving me amazing advice. And just watching somebody that's about 10, maybe 15 years ahead of me and being like, I want what she's doing. The vibe I get when I'm with her and watching how successful she is as a wife and a mom and a businesswoman, I didn't know that was possible to be good at all of them because I feel like I'm wearing so many hats and I suck at all the hats. How do I do this? It's not possible. And I just had a really high standard of perfection. And I wanted my emails to be at 0 every day. I was driving myself to exhaustion. So finding Traction was a huge catapult forward for running our business. I learned how to run my business smarter. I learned how to run meetings, and I made a million changes when I started running Traction. And it took me probably a year and a half to get good at it. I did it wrong for a while. I actually went directly to the Traction. They have this huge online presence where you can learn how to roll it out. And so I even thought maybe I want to become an implementer and learn how to do this. When we got to 350 doors, I was expecting my second. We were still in such a mode of growth. We weren't looking at, okay, we're comfortable at 350. Let's just be good with this. And we had an amazing team. I look back on that. Why did I change it? I had so many good things going on. But if we're going to keep growing, I'm not good enough. I can't handle this. I can't handle a bigger company than what we're at right now. Matthew still wanted more, and I felt like I couldn't give anymore. I'm tired. I'm expecting my second child, and I can't even tell you that I want to own this business anymore. I'm that tired. Matt, being who he is, was like, let's find a company that we can partner with about the same size as we are, and let's become 50-50 partners with them. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So we started interviewing partners, and we found Stone Oak Property Management. 2 guys ran the company. We felt like we were the perfect group of 4. One of the partners had a very similar mindset as me. He was what Traction calls the implementer. He was running the business. He was in the details. The other partner was on growth and the connecting side, which is what Traction calls the visionary. Traction says you need both pieces to have a successful business. Mm-hmm. Matt and I were like, we are that. We just need another company that mirrors us and can help with the other. We can figure out where each of our strengths are. And so got involved with them, decided to partner, and we merged all of our employees, and I became the head of the business, and I restructured the entire company to fall in line with the traction I had already created. We had our departments, and we had our department heads over each department. I was the head of the company. And my partner got to just be on the background, making sure everything was working well. He was handling all the money. And I was like, great, I've always hated the money. You handle that. I'm scared of that. I don't want to do it. And it felt like an answer to all of our prayers for about 7 months. And then my baby came. And we don't know if this is true or not, but we have a feeling that they partnered with us as a pregnant lady so that they could push us out and steal our company, because that feels like what happened. The whole agreement was that once my baby comes, I get to stay home for 12 weeks. I really want 12 weeks of quiet to be with my baby because I didn't have that with George, and I felt really guilty about it. I didn't have partners, and I felt like the partners will give me a maternity leave. And Louis, my youngest, was about 4 weeks old, and we got a message from our partner saying that we needed to get on a call, that things were really bad. And the guy that was running it for me while I was gone basically was like, I can't handle this without you. The company's going to go downhill unless you get back in. I'm going to Mexico. I can't handle this. I want out of this business. We were like, wait, what? Total shock. So I did it. I put my son in care and went back to work. We think it was just all this weird scheme to really, like, a pregnant lady, I'm having all these emotions. I can't really handle this management company. We're at over 1,000 doors at this point. It's a huge team. There's a ton of problems. And it felt like while the month that I was gone, nothing was handled the right way. I had set up so much to just run, and it felt like it was all on purpose. And so I couldn't handle it. And then about 3 months later, Matt and I said we went out and turned into a big fight, and we ended up selling them our shares for a very discounted rate. We would have never sold our business for what we sold it to them for. And there's so many regrets all piled into that. I still remember a really difficult moment where I was just kind of, when you're just emotional and you have a baby and you're not thinking straight and you say things you don't mean. And Matt just said, you know what? I just want you to be happy. So whatever you want to do, like, you make the decision. And I ended up calling our partner and telling him that we wanted to sell. And Matt was so mad at me for doing that. And it felt like something in us went from being a team to we were against each other. And I remember just going on a walk that night and feeling so betrayed. You told me I could do what I wanted, but I was just doing what I wanted. I realized that looking back, I wasn't being a teammate. I wasn't surrendered to my husband as a leader. I was just acting out of so much fear and wanting to protect motherhood. I feel like that's been a big fear of mine since I've had kids. I want to be a good mom, and I feel like business and motherhood can't go together. And yeah, we ended up selling our management company, and it felt like that was the catapult that made everything else start going downhill with our finances. We went from making like 30 to 40 grand a month with all of our income streams coming in to nothing. The market started dropping, and Matt had a couple of good deals he was involved in that he got pushed out of. A lot of things just happened at once. And I felt like Matt blamed me for a long time. I felt guilty. Then I finally had what I wanted, but it didn't feel right. It felt like I stole it. Matt and I didn't feel like a team. And I didn't know how to keep going. Who am I now? I've always been a business owner. I really struggled after selling our company. It was about 2 years later. My son was 2, and I told Matt's partner that I would do another management company with him to help them manage their properties together. I wasn't ready to do it again. I think I made that decision because of all the emotions I was feeling of guilt, feeling like I had to do this for Matt. This is what he really wants, somebody to be a businesswoman with him. Like, I didn't feel like I was a worthy wife without being the business side for him. And so we started our company again. We did that for about a year until me and Matt's partner were just very different. And so we ended up closing that down after realizing it just wasn't working. So that was 3-4 different companies. And after starting it with Matt's partner, we got a letter from Stone Oak saying that we weren't out of our non-compete. And we were trying to do it under Matt's partner's name, and it didn't work. They knew that we were involved in it. So that was another reason we shut it down. And now we are completely out of our non-compete. And I've had a lot of people, including one of my best friends that worked with me. And she's like, Lexi, I just feel like you keep going back to what's comfortable for you. Why do you keep starting the same thing? Why not do something different? I feel like I am a property manager. It's not just what I do, it's who I am. Part of me wants to show myself that I can overcome. That I've had a lot of partners that I always felt like the partner would be the answer. When Matt brought up doing another property management company, he was actually joking. He was like, what if we go back to Round Rock and do another property management business? And I jokingly told him I only would do that if we could just do it ourselves. What do Lexi and Matthew look like together? And it turns out people really like us. I think the team of us and Matthew being able to be the side of an investor, it's like, hey, do you want to grow? Do you want to know how this works? Are you curious how to be an investor? Matthew's that side of it. We call him the real estate right-hand man. Anything you want to know about investing in real estate, Matthew can teach you. And then I'm the details. I'm the middleman. And I tell people I was born a middle sister. I'm born the glue. And that's what it takes, is both of us being able to do exactly what we're good at, leaning into the details that I've always run from, the numbers and the accounting, making myself slow down enough and lean into them. And now I'm actually enjoying it. I'm really proud that we can enjoy the parts of us that we run from. Something about me knew that I wasn't done yet. I feel like every time I had done this before, it didn't go the way I was hoping it would. What if I try one more time and do it from who I am? And let's see what God does with that. I never wanted to grow a huge property management company. And now I'm like, hey, if I can do it my way and just serve my clients well and do what I know and take care of our own assets, but also do it for others who have a like mindset and who value me and who let me do it my way instead of trying to micromanage me, what would it look like? And it turns out it's amazing. It's like better than I could have imagined. I am loving it. I never thought I could love it this much, but I love working on my business. I love looking at the numbers. I'm sitting down and I'm focusing and I'm doing one thing at a time. And I feel like I'm training myself on how to do it, and I'm loving it.
You mentioned you guys sold the property management. You moved to Coast. Is that the time when you guys took majority of what you guys made and put it in this one company with Matt? Was that like a team decision or was that more of Matt decision?
Definitely a Matt decision. I always supported him and was good at letting him just do it. But I also think that my fear with numbers and not wanting to look at it was my excuse to not look at it was like, well, you're in charge. You decide what you want to do, what you want to invest in, and what you feel led. There was a point where he had gone too far with putting so much money into one company that he was realizing, like, I don't know if we're going to be able to get out of this. And I told him, no matter where we are financially, I'll always be by your side. I chose you. You didn't have a lot of money when I met you. We were in college. We were 18. I didn't know that his mom had properties, and we don't necessarily like count that as ours. But Matthew has a history with gambling, and I ignored that as a warning to letting him make decisions, big decisions with lots of people's money. And I think I could have done a lot better job of caring a little more of where our money was going and helping him. I think that goes back to what we talked about with people pleasing and sometimes not having hard conversations. I just let a lot of things go. And I think I could have been a little bit sounder of a bounce board and a more supportive partner by asking him more questions and wanting to be a little more involved with our finances. But I put that full burden on him to make all the decisions. And I can't blame him now, looking back, for doing what he did. He had to do it alone. I wasn't standing there with him, although I was saying, yeah, do whatever you want, thinking I was being a supportive wife. And I've struggled with what that looks like for me, being a supportive wife. Supporting his work doesn't mean just letting him be on his phone all day on Saturday because I think he has to work. This goes back to the balance of sharing what's important to us and having a voice in our marriage doesn't mean that we're not supportive.
I understand where you're coming from. And so many things here. First of all, you saying that no matter what his finances, y'all's finances is, you're by his side. So that's like a tremendous amount of loyalty. And it shows that in him being able to do that he wants to do. When it's couples walking on the journey, and it's intended this way, when God brings two people together, is the person that you're with enables who you are. Obviously, if you are in the right relationship. And in this case, Matthew can be Matthew because he has unwavering loyalty from you. And that's such a beautiful thing to have, regardless of the journey and the walk that you're walking. And I'm not saying this because it's going to be perfect. It's not like that you're going to agree with everything that he does or that you love everything that he does or you just want him to do everything that he wants to do. But it's just enabling him and him having that I have my other half be there for me no matter what. And she takes me the way I come. Good, bad. So if we get to the actual moments of you guys going through and losing, and do you remember the time when he said, was it one time or was it like slowly, hey, this is going down, or it's like, no, we're here, we lost it all? Like, what was that path? And what were you feeling in that moment? Because a big part of it is, like I said, it probably was the funds too that came from the sale of that company that you've worked together, and you particularly through two pregnancies, building it up, and now gone.
Yeah, it was hard. I knew things were getting tight. I started completely avoiding our checking account. I didn't even log in. He would handle our finances, and I could start noticing a big burden on him. I knew the stocks were really stressing him out. They started going down, and he was in such a pickle that he was buying more when they were down, hoping that would help get him out of the pickle more. But then as they kept going, I could just see it all over him. He wasn't himself. He started to gain weight, and he was really good at maintaining a face. I think he didn't want to scare me. And so he would only tell me so much, but I just knew something was off. And I would try to talk to him about it, and he would kind of avoid the subject. And I was okay with that. We were both surviving. When I did really bring it up, it would usually circle back to us not having the company and that us not making the money anymore that we used to. And realizing that I had a bigger part to play in the problem, and I wasn't ready to face that. I didn't know how to face it. Once we lost it all, though, it was actually kind of a relief for me. I hate to say that. It's really weird. I'm not motivated by money in a natural way. I feel like everybody is in some ways, but I remember just telling Matt, I would rather all of it be gone and just have you back so that you can stop checking the stock account, wondering if it's going to be there. Let's just get to the other side of this. I even told him I would rather just file bankruptcy and get it over with. I guess that shows part of me. I feel like I am quicker to throw in the towel, and Matt's just such a fighter, and that kind of is good that both of us have that holding us together. I remember it being almost a relief because then we could just move past it and say, how do we get out of this? But even after that, it was so much money. I'm not going to be part of this solution because it's too big. It's too much money for me to help you with. And you're going to have to go figure out how to get out of all this debt that you created. And I remember having this heart of, even though I wanted to sell our company, this is your fault. You need to find the solution for this. I'm not going to divorce you, but you need to figure this out on your own. Is kind of the attitude I had towards it. Not completely facing that, not to him, but subconsciously, I felt like he had to figure it out on his own. Now that I'm leaning into being part of the solution, I'm leaning into, okay, you're not alone in this. You did this, but I want to help you out. I don't want you to feel alone. And I think that's been the biggest change, is just the mindset in both of us of having grace with each other. He stopped blaming me. Now that I'm starting over the management company, there's been a big shift in us coming back home, of both of us just giving each other grace and not blaming each other anymore, working towards the solution and trying to do it without a heavy burden on us, trying to do it in a way that serves God and trust Him to help us through it. Like, we're like, how does that look? The biggest way it looks for us right now is just every day counting our blessings. We are so grateful. We have so much to be thankful for. We are healthy and we have a home, the home he grew up in, and we're eating healthy. We've never not been able to pay our mortgage. Every month, we don't know how it's going to work. In fact, Matt was just telling me yesterday, like, okay, this month's really tight. After building so many businesses and working as hard as we have, it's easy for me to get in the mindset, like, I'm 35 now. I'm ready to feel like we're not so struggling for money. But then we got to go to Rome last year with our kids on a business trip for Matt, totally paid for. He went on like 15 trips last year and met the most amazing people and has the best community of people that love him and are uplifting him, that respect him. And I think it's done something really good for him to have that without having the money. People really do respect you for just who you are, Matt, and for what you've built, even if things are still tight. I just think it's the perspective of being grateful that both of us are not just creating a habit, but it's deep within us that we are just so grateful. And I think that's it. That's the game changer. simple and complicated and just so heavy. I wouldn't wish anybody to go through the amount of financial heartache that we have, but we've never been evicted or been foreclosed on. And I know a lot of families have. We're not at the end. God still is writing our story. I have so much experience now. I know how to make money. Let's do that. Not scared to work hard. With both of us, we feel like God's going to turn our story around. God wants us to be prosperous.
You have a very strong faith, and you mentioned your encounter with God in the middle school. I'm curious about how that happened, and also where was God through all of this, especially through these moments of difficulty? Did you have moments that you were angry at God or walked away from God, or you actually clinched more? What was that journey? So if you can share with us what was the giving your life to God in middle school and how that happened, and then how is it throughout your life up until today?
Great question. Middle school, my friends and I found a church that we could walk to by going across this field in our neighborhood. And I had a friend who lived just 5 doors down from me, Emma Watson. I'll never forget her. And her and I found this church and found that they had this youth program on Wednesday evenings. And we started going there. We ended up going to church camp. And I told my parents, like, y'all can go to your Methodist church. They went every once a month. But I was super dedicated to this church. We made shirts called the Holy Rollers. And we had a goal of bringing different middle schoolers to church once a week. We'd be like, okay, I'm going to try to get these people to come with us this Wednesday. We ended up starting a morning Bible study. I was just so on fire. I longed to be the Christian I was in middle school. I don't know what came over me, but I was just so on fire for the Lord. And I think I got further away when I went to college. That's like the typical college story of like, I drifted a little bit, but I never turned completely away from God. I knew He was there with me, but I definitely got my priorities out of whack. I didn't feel like I was being a good or strong Christian in college, but Matthew will tell people that I led him to God in college, and we ended up going on a mission trip in Africa, and that's where he was baptized. And it's so sweet. And through all of our struggles, I feel like I left God at certain times when I was dealing with anger and the financial stuff. I remember feeling like we did it. Since we got ourselves into this, we've got to get ourselves out. God's not going to rescue us because we're the problem. Although it's a messed up way of thinking. It's kind of that back to like, you have to be good enough to earn the love or the title. I've been really blown away when you look back and realize that God was always there when Matt was investing all the money into stock and taking it into his own hands. I really feel like part of every Christian's death story is learning that the real root of every sin is our own pride. And just wanting to do things on my own because God shouldn't have to, this isn't a God problem. This is almost like a I'm entitled problem. God has other things to do. And so I went less to Him when I was struggling with my marriage and I was just trying to fix everything on my own and just realizing Matt's not going to fix the finances on his own. I'm not going to fix myself on my own. So just inviting God into all of that has been amazing.
What do you think God is trying to mold and shape in you through all this? You specifically.
I think just a surrendered heart. I think realizing I've always had this anxiousness with time, like feeling like I've got to do everything fast and I have a lot to do and I'm going to get it all done. I'll look at my weekly to-do list and feel like I have to get it done on a Monday. And just letting God's peace take over us and watching things work without us specifically doing anything. That's been the most amazing thing to me lately. It's like when I don't do anything, God is still moving our needle forward. And just the way we got this house, Matt's mom and Matt called me after a Christmas party and they said, do not unload the car. I was about to unload the car on the coast in our coastal house. And I was there by myself and they said, don't unload the car. You're moving to Round Rock. You're going to move into the house you grew up in. They're going to go to school. And Matt's like, we're going to start our company like we've been talking about. And I remember waking up a week after that conversation and everything just falling in line without me forcing it, without me doing a ton of planning and heavy lifting, and just finally feeling what it felt like to know God's burden is light and his yoke really is easy. And we really can let him take it because he's going to make it. Like, I couldn't have worked on all this. I couldn't have made all that happen. And just really realizing like his plan is going to work out. We don't have to put so much pressure on it and on ourselves. And I don't know exactly the moment when all of the anxiety and pressure left me, but I'll tell you it's gone. I am still in $4 million worth of debt with my husband, but you wouldn't ever know it. I don't feel burdened. And that's only because of God's love and grace for us. And I don't deserve it at all. It's beautiful. So our story has definitely strengthened my faith and my children's faith too, because they'll even tell you, we're sick of moving. Please don't make us move again. My son's lived in 9 houses and he just turned 7. And it's just like, that was a lot of unnecessary work that we did. And now I don't want to do it Lexi's way anymore. I just want to do it God's way. His way's so much better.
My gosh, I just remember that day when I was sitting on the sofa. I was crying and sobbing, like it's still, as I'm saying. And I was like, God, I just don't want it my way anymore. Please. It was just such a relief. So I can totally feel that from you. It's like just whatever it is, just I don't want it anymore. Do it your way or no way.
Yeah. This is a hard world we live in, and we're in a hard industry. It's pretty cutthroat, and I love that we can add this beauty and lightness and joy, and it makes it all worth it. God's in business too. I felt that for a long time. Like, God doesn't want to help me with my management company. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, because all those people, they need a home to live, and it's calling you who would provide better service because it comes from a heart that belongs to God versus somebody else that would treat them just as another transaction. Now, of course, we have to balance the business side with the serving side, but it's what I tell everyone. You are meant to have the wealth because it comes from the heart. More God hearts are needing to do his work rather than non-God hearts. Because the funds are going to end up in someone's hands. So God wants it to end up in the hands of those whose hearts belongs to him. And I am a very strong believer that the more the valley, the stronger the comeback. And I look so forward to the day then you guys will be like, oh, now we're at 12 million. Now, like, we're at, 50 million because God is shaping and molding in you guys things that you need for handling that kind of bless for his kingdom. And it's hard to see it now when the woods are covering everything and the rays of the suns are barely coming through those woods. Like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to dig myself out of this hole. But just one touch of his favor is It's a lot. And sometimes I'm thinking, God, it's a small price that I paid for the person that you're building, for the character that you're shaping.
Mhm. Yes.
That's the heart says. The mind says different.
Right. I know what you mean though, because then you look at yourself and how far you've come and probably unrecognizable from when you were first starting out. You would have never dreamed that. And you're just like in awe of what God can do.
Yeah. And if you think of a diamond does not become and has brilliance unless it is polished and shaped under tremendous pressure. So can become God's brilliance through its true brilliance if we do not encounter the pressure and the polishing. And it's so hard to be like, yeah, I'm ready for this. Like, just mold me. No, I'm like struggling. It's hurting. I don't want to do this. And then God says, no, if you accept me, if you lean on to me, it's going to be pain and hard, but you're going to be so much better.
Yes, we've said that too. I completely agree because we were not good fosters of our money and we didn't steward all of the blessings that we had in a righteous way. We were not frugal. We were not tracking our expenses. We were just chaotic with it. And God's not going to continue to bless that. And we would have all of the lessons and all of the growth and all of the like learning to lean on each other as a married couple with God in the middle through the hurt and the pain without it being perfect and without being on the other side of it, learning how to live within your circumstances. You have to go through it. You know, how many billionaires have lost millions of dollars first? So we try to focus on that. We're like, okay, a lot of people have been here and they've made their way out. So let's not let this be the end of our story. And now I'm with Matthew. Okay, let's not go do bankruptcy. Let's just continue the fight. But sometimes it's easier to just be like, I give up. You want to give up, but then you're like, no, I'm a fighter. Let's do this fight and see what God has on the other side. Let's just see. We want to find out. Are we kind of curious? What does life look like when we're our best selves? We've been studying King Solomon at church and how he built all the riches. And then he was like, it's all vanity. It means nothing. And so also, you want to build your wealth and have the character behind it. I love the way you explained how poor versus wealthy define their wealth and how they spend their time and what they count as valuable. You just have to go through all of those shaping things to be who you're supposed to be with that much money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned Solomon's story. He was content and he was wealthy as long as his heart belonged to God. But then as soon as he went away from it, it just crumbled and everything got split up. And stewardship, not ownership. We're here to be stewards, not owners. So, and a lot of times we assume that ownership responsibility and then it's just trying to do it my way or the highway. And God's like, no, it doesn't belong to you. I'm giving you for you to steward it for me because you're not the owner.
I have a heart of service. And I find that when my days are full of serving and letting that look like whatever it looks like in that moment, that I sleep well at night. And that's really all. I feel like it's as simple as that. Being a disciple looks a lot of different ways. We can put a lot of pressure and walls around what we're allowing our life to look like. But just in the simplest form, I just want to serve. And I just hope that God will continue to use me. I'm excited to see what that looks like without my pressure of making it a certain way. And I think if we're willing to say yes in moments where it's really hard, like right now, saying yes to this management company and breaking through that little barrier that was always kind of nagging at me that I kept quitting and doing different things. We just put one foot in front of the other and we say yes, then our life will start to mold into something that is so much better than we could have ever expected. So I don't feel like the debt is on me anymore. I think I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, even though this decision was made out of the debt. It's what I'm called to right now. And what it turns into, I don't have a set goal yet. I want to just maintain small enough to where I can work from home and serve my clients well. But beyond that, I'm just going to lean into it and let it evolve. I'm enjoying the journey right now, for sure.
That's awesome. Lexi, for all those that want to reach out to you, I know you mentioned you have a women's group where everyone share without judgment, and you have growing through that. And I'm positive everyone in there is growing through that initiative and meetings that you're having. You also are building a management company, which means that anyone that has investments in the Austin area or wants to invest in an Austin area, you will probably be an awesome resource and an awesome help. So what are the things that people can reach out to you for, and what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, we're really excited about our new brand. It's called Tejas Private Money, and it's just Matt and I. So find us there. Our website will be launching this week. We have been putting that brand together. I'm very excited about launching that. And I am working on recreating all of my Instagram and Facebook channels. I have been really silent on social media for a long time. So that's another goal of mine this year, just stepping into the world of social media, not being scared of it. Honestly, my husband is a great source of connection to me. He's kind of like my bodyguard at the door, helps protect my time. It's funny, actually, the way we're going to channel our website is when you reach out to us, it goes to Matthew first because we are looking for investor-minded people only. We do not want accidental landlords this time. We are truly protecting our little niche. That's why we're calling it private money instead of property management. So Tejas Private Money, and I'd love to share with you our website, Lari, once it's ready.
Yeah, I'll definitely put it in the description. I would put Matthew's email. He gave it out during the podcast last time. So have the information below. If they are looking for the group of women, is that something that you would want them to reach out to you to for?
Yes, we are probably looking at another 6 weeks of our current book. We open up the group every time we finish a book and see if anybody else wants to join. So yeah, probably just email me at Lex, at tejaspm.co. And I have a little group of waiting lists that I'm saving. So once we do another launch, I can include them in the info of what we're doing. I'm excited to finish your book. I'm about 3/4 of the way done, but your book is amazing. I would highly recommend it. I'm actually going to recommend your book for our next book in my book club.